What's up, guys? Hey, welcome to Fitness King 360 podcast. And today we're talking about in-season training. We're going to go in. I got about 5 different things I want to talk about. I'm going to start with the first one first. We're just going to get right into it because I think this is important right now. We get ready to go into August, and of course, the season is about to start for most athletes, especially football players. So we want to get ready to go ahead and talk about the importance of in-season training, whether you are a football player, whether you are a basketball player, baseball player, tennis player. Look, it does not matter the sport. I think this subject is super important for all athletes that are truly serious about taking their game to the next level, and they're serious about their in-season and all-season and individual training. The first thing, maintaining performance level. I think that's important because I think it helps athletes consistently maintain their peak performance. Their peak performance is normally what that athlete builds in the off season when they reach that peak, when they get into that next level of their athletic ability. And it's probably at a level that they were not at previous, right? So it's important that you're maintaining that peak performance in season throughout the season, because of the fact that you don't want to lose what you build in the off season. I think guys need to understand the importance of building in the off season, and when you're building in the off season, it requires you to stay consistent with that in the in season. I think being consistent in the end season of your individual training, things that you worked on that you know you probably were not good at previous before, and all of a sudden you started to get really, really good at those things, and then your season started, no matter the sport, and then it kind of drops off. Why does it drop off though? It drops off because of the fact that you're no longer doing those things anymore. And I think if you're an athlete that truly want to play at the next level, truly want to become a starter, truly want to be an impact player, no matter the sport, I think it's important that you maintain peak performance in the in season. So in season is truly important for athletes that truly want to get to the next level, that truly want to be an impact player. If you're an impact player, then you know why you need to maintain your peak performance. I mean, let's just face it. We understand that middle school athletes and high school athletes, college athletes are doing things that they have to do with their team in the off season. Those are things that they're requiring you to do. Of course, in the off season with your team, you're going to get bigger, faster, stronger. But I don't think, and I think I'm probably 90% right, that we are breaking down each athlete and saying, okay, this off season, this is what you need to work on. Because if we don't break that athlete down, how can we ever fix the weaknesses? Because really, in your individual training, in your off-season training, we should be trying to find out, okay, what's next for us now? Where are you weak at right now? Where can we help you get to the next level with your ability? Outside of your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders, your core, legs getting bigger. Outside of that, how can we help you maintain peak performance? But we got to get you to that next step. And I think the only way you can get to that next step, I think it's individual all-season training, building up your peak performance, getting better at your weaknesses, and then consistently going through it in the end season so we can keep building on top of it. It's all about maintaining that. I'm not saying schools don't do a great job at that, but I am saying that schools don't pinpoint the athlete's weaknesses, no matter the sport. I know that for a fact. I've been into several middle school programs, several high school programs. I've talked to several athletes, several coaches, and they've told me the same exact thing. I saw it with my own eyes, so I'm not just telling you this. This is why it's so hard for an athlete to consistently get better. You see what I'm saying? Not consistently get better at the plays, not consistently get better at running about, not consistently get better at any of those things, but consistently get better at whatever your weaknesses was, and also whatever your strengths are right now, but continue to take your peak performance to the next level. But if you stop like you would normally do when the season starts for any sport, right, you're going to slow down on weightlifting. You're not going to do as much. Some days you might even miss weightlifting, right? So the more you miss on those things, those detailed things, the more your peak performance start to go down. And anytime it starts to go down, the next time you decide to go into off-season training, guess what? bro, it's almost like you're starting over. Don't you get tired of starting over on certain things that you do? Like you get disappointed. You're not even motivated when you have to start over. But that's truly what it is when you don't train in the end season. End season is there for you to build off of what you've truly built in the off season. And if we can build off of it in the end season as well, now we can continue to take our game to the next level each and every year. Injury prevention. I think regular training and conditioning the body lowers the risk of injuries. I do think that, right? But let's be honest. How many teams, high school, middle school level, truly work on balance and coordination? How many teams do you really think work on that in the off season, in the end season? How many teams have you saw tell their athletes, we're doing single leg squats, we're doing single leg hold, we're doing single leg chops? How many athletes or teams have you seen do that? I'll wait. And the only reason I'm asking you that, because I know, because I've been inside of these programs, that those are things that are not being worked. And I also see several injuries in season with all the contact, whether it's basketball or football, baseball. Baseball, not as much, right? You don't have a lot of contact in baseball. You don't have a lot of contact in tennis. But the thing is, at the end of the day, those injuries are still available to be had. Why? Because you're not working on these things in the end season. So for instance, for my athletes in the off season, in the end season, even more in the end season, we work on a lot of balance stuff. We work on a lot of balanced BOSU ball stuff. We work on a lot of balanced pass stuff, balance this, have foam roll. Why are we working on that so much? Well, we work on it in the off season because of the fact that we need to stabilize those muscles, get them to fire off, and get them to work for us as much as possible. When you don't work balance, then you're not recruiting all your muscles anyway, right? That's why you see a lot of guys tearing their ACLs. That's why you see a lot of guys twisting their ankles, doing different things like that, right? You see more guys on the sidelines than you see playing most times, especially some of your best guys, because they don't have that longevity, because of the fact that when we get back into end season, how much balance training is really going on? Not enough at all, if any at all, right? So it's important to end season train, because if you train in the end season, then we can consistently work the balance. And if we're consistently working the balance, guess what? We are lowering the risk of injuries. If you look at the pro level guys, if you look at the college guys, those guys are consistently doing those things in their workouts in the off season and in the end season, because they have a strength and conditioning coach that knows exactly what needs to happen. They know that these athletes need to have longevity. They know how important balance training is to prevent injuries. I won't say prevent, but I would say lower the risk of injury. So in season, we have to keep those movements going. That's the advantage that you have when you do train in the end season, because you're going to take, especially in the game of football, you're going to take a beating game after game. If you got 10 games, you're going to take a beating. If you got 12, you're going to take a beating. Your body at some point is going to give out on you. But if you replace it and lay the foundation with balanced training, then of course, then we can lower the risk of injuries. Consistency. It helps maintain the gains that you built in the off season. Consistency is a really big word, right? And I think the consistency is the part that most people don't understand, because they don't know how to stay consistent. But if you think about it for a second, in the off season, you know, normally you will come back into end season when schools start back. Normally you look bigger. Obviously you've gotten stronger. Your bench press then went up, your squat then went up, your deadlift max then went up. All your numbers have shot up. You've gotten faster. But it tends to fade in season because of the fact that we're not consistent anymore. We're more so consistent with being inconsistent. Have you ever heard that before? I mean, a lot of us are that type of person, right? So what I'm telling you is, it's super important in the end season. If whatever you build in the off season, if you get bigger biceps, if you get a bigger chest, if your legs get bigger, if you get faster, it's super important to stay consistent. Even though your program, the school that you go to, will decrease the weight, But how can you stay consistent? If you want to be able to still keep those good numbers in the end season, you have to continue to lift heavy. Might not be for the same amount of reps or sets. Everything was regressed, but we need to be able to maintain that strength consistently in the end season. If we're not able to maintain that strength in the end season, what's going to happen when we come back to off season? You'll start back over again, and you shouldn't be mad at anybody but yourself. So it's super important that we're consistent with building the motivation and the consistent power and the consistent results, whether it's bench press, squats, deadlifts, running faster. We got to stay consistent during the end season to continue to see progress. So when we get back into the off season, guess what? Now we're still building off top of what we had built previous before. Adapting to the game demands. What do I mean by that? That could mean anything, right? But I want you to make sure you understand exactly what I mean. Now, when we get back in the in-season training, right, I think everything that you do, whether it's weight training, whether it's position work, whether it's quickness, agility, speed, balance, coordination, I think it should match the demand of the sport. If it's a football player, we know that a play lasts from about 8 to 15 seconds, right? If it's basketball, we know that the demand of the game, the energy zone for that game lasts for about 10 to 15 to 20 seconds. If it's baseball, we know that the energy zone lasts from about 5 to 10 seconds. So no matter the sport, now we want to train the body in season according to the demand and the energy level of that sport. Why are we doing that? Why don't we do that in the off season? Because in the off season, we're trying to get bigger, faster, stronger. So we have to have a certain amount of reps, a certain amount of sets, to be able to get bigger, faster, stronger. And we have to have a certain amount of weight if we want to be able to transform our body, right? So in season, all we need to be able to do now is maintain that, but we need to be able to train the energy zone for each sport. Why? Because we need to be able to put out that same amount of energy each and every play. Most guys are not in top of the line shape and can't do that. They might be good for 1 or 2 plays. They might be good for 1 or 2 quarters. But after that, you start noticing they're tired. They're not moving as fast. Why? Because they don't do in-season training. And yes, the schools do in-season training, but the later it gets in a year, you start to notice that the conditioning stops. You're not doing any high demands of the game training. You're not doing any of that type of stuff, and then you start to lose your momentum when you get late into the playoffs. And guess what? Your energy zone, your body being in shape, you being ready for the demand of that sport, it fades away. And most teams don't make it in the later rounds because their players are not physically ready. They're not in shape. Their energy zones are not ready. So that's the important things about training the demand of the sport, because at the end of the day, we got to be able to consistently do it in the end season in certain periods where we're training our energy zone to prepare us for that sport each and every day, each and every week. So if we do go further in the playoffs, we're able to still have the energy, the effort, and the endurance to last. Mental toughness. I think mental toughness is super important for each athlete individually. I think that's something that a lot of times these kids lack confidence. They lack mental toughness. And sometimes that can be ranging from not getting playing time, not being coached up individually, not just building that relationship, not knowing how to really study and understand the athlete. And I think they get that on a personal level. The personal level of training, I think you can install the mental toughness, because individually when you're going into sessions, you're having good days, you're having bad days. And I've seen so many athletes that have bad days, and I'm able to talk to them one-on-one. And I think consistently I've saw their mindset change. I've saw them be able to respond to adversity in a different way, but consistently. And I think I've trained athletes, the same athletes, for years, and I've saw that whether they're starters or they're not starters, or they're 5-star, they're 3-star, I've saw the level of individual training, teaching them how to be mentally tough, teaching them and showing them that throughout the process, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but being mentally tough throughout that process being mentally tough in games, because sometimes, like I said, you got a team of 100 kids. You're not able to individually work with each athlete to build that relationship, to show them how to be mentally tough, because at that point in time, especially in season, what you're doing, you're prepping for a game. I ain't got time to teach you how to be mentally tough. And I think that's where the off season, when we build these athletes up individually, we're able to install the mindset, install the being mentally tough into their mindset. And I think they carry it into the season, but the consistent training in season consistently installs the mental toughness. So it's great for athletes to be able to train in the off season